All right, in this video, I'm going to break down a shot I recently took of featuring some Mythic Legions Goblins. These guys are great, very posable, very expressive, very cool. I'm setting them in a couple of dio pieces that I have. This base piece is something I made. There's another platform back there that I made that I kind of just wanted to continue the scene at the same level on, so I'm using some pieces of cardboard back there just to hold that up to the same level as this staircase, which is from Sage JDG on Instagram. And that's part of a bigger piece. There's a doorway and an archway. I have some pictures on my Instagram that feature that. But for this one, I wanted to have a little more open. I didn't want to have the archway of the door kind of crowding the scene, and I wanted to have some of the goblins in the background be able to be seen. So that doorway is a little tighter than these two pillars are. The pillars are something I made as well. Just some foam and a tube combination. So, you know, putting those here as if they're a continuation of this railing. So let's break down the scene and I'll take you through what I'm doing here. First and foremost, I have this background. So this background is a stock photo that I got from a stock photography site that I have a subscription to. What I'm doing here is I've got a big kind of I think about 55-inch TV screen back there. Something I picked up a couple of years ago. Pretty inexpensive. It's not 4K, unfortunately. At the time, 4K was a little pricey. Probably could get a good one now for pretty cheap. I usually have this hooked up to my laptop, but unfortunately my laptop is down at the moment. So what I'm using here is just my iPad and Procreate. So the reason I'm using Procreate and not just opening it up in Photos or something is for this purpose. I can take this, bring it in as an element in a layered piece, and I can move it, I can tilt it, I can turn it, I can, you know, contract it, expand it, so that I can fit it. And I'll usually take that and just literally stand here, look through the camera, and adjust it so that it fits where I want it to be. That's the screen. All right, so you take a look at the screen. Within Procreate, I can adjust the colors a little bit. I can blur it, add a little contrast, all of which I did just slightly. But it's got a blue cast, and I kind of want that to match that. What I'm doing is I'm using an overall atmospheric light up there, which is a 1000-watt LED can with a softbox on it and 2 blue gels. So that creates an overall kind of night feel to it without being too blue, too artificial. I kind of want to get a real gritty moonlit scene, and you'll see, like in the picture, there is a moon shining there. That's where the light's coming from. So you'll notice that this light is an overall ambience light is set behind the set, because that's where the most amount of your light is going to come from in this shot. If you look at the scene itself, that's where most of the light is coming from. The front of the castle is darker. There's atmosphere bouncing around that, so you're going to get that cast everywhere, but the most of the light is coming from the moon. So in order to really pick that up, this would probably work on its own to give the illusion of moonlight in the shot, but I really just wanted to give it a little bit more of a real feel of some sort of central glow coming out from the middle. The reason I don't have this, you can see the camera is here, and the aim is right about straight through that column. So where the camera is aiming, I probably should move this over. But what's going to happen then is I'm probably going to get, and I think I tried this yesterday, I get a little bit of a light glare off the screen, and it really didn't make, I tried it, really didn't make that much of a difference. A lot of this stuff is flat. The only thing that's really shiny is the helmets. This guy's especially, that he's way in the back. A couple other elements, but it's really not affecting it enough so that I'd rather not have to deal with trying to block it off from creating glare on the screen. It's just easier to do it that way. A key light. Now, a lot of times you take a key light and you put it right about here, you know, somewhere in there, or off to the side, just a little bit where this is right here. But I'll show you what that looked like. And of course, you know, adjusting for intensity, it just had too much of a light source feel. Like there was a light source here. Now I could have done it in orange or something like that, and yeah, I could have represented a flame, but it's not really the look I wanted. I wanted really just a nighttime, like these guys were woken in the middle of the night and there was an attack on the castle and they're running out from the castle to defend it. So I didn't want like fires and stuff like that. I guess the enemy could have been holding torches or something, but anyway, it just wasn't what I had in mind. So this is very bright and looks like a source. Now I could take modifiers and diffusers and diffuse that a little bit with, you know, you could do it with tracing paper, or I have some modifier diffusers that you could use, or I could add a couple more elements to the LumaCube, but it still gave it too much of the indication that there's a light here. So what I did instead was just sat it there, and then I just take a bounce card. So this is just a piece of foam core, probably 9x12 looks like, and these clips are fantastic. You can get them in hardware stores because they're used for a lot of things. They're clamps. You can buy them for photography, that they're used to clamp the backdrops and stuff on to the bars. But I use them almost exclusively for either holding something in place, or you put it on the card like that and it stands up on its own, which is great. So you can place this anywhere, and you can get, you know, smaller size cards if you need them. Just wanted to get a little bit of a bounce onto his face without getting too much bright. So now you can see that the side of his face is lit. If we move this card out a little bit more, you get a little bit more. If we move it back, it's a little less. You can see the difference there. Just that card. And if you tilt it towards the light more and bring it out, it's going to be brighter. If you move it back. So there's a lot of play here, and you got to get, but you have a lot of control over what you want. So that's what I did there. That's kind of my key light on the face of my main character here, Thump. Then the other thing I did with Thump is still a little, when I looked through the lens, he was still a little dark underneath. And this happens a lot, depending on where your light is placed. I mean, he's getting some light bounced from this part of the card here. But it's just not getting enough underneath him. So what I do is I'll take a smaller version of that bounce card, and I just place a little fake rock underneath it to kind of hold it up at an angle. And that's going to just give a little bit of light underneath him. You can probably see the difference between that and that. It's very subtle, but you're just getting some highlights on the pauldron and underneath his face, so it's nice. Over here, the next thing I wanted to do, so this is basically my angle here, where the camera's at, and you can see the second goblin in the back. Looks good. I mean, this still looks dark through here, but fog is going to be an element in that too. But you can see the second goblin there to the left is just a little dark. So I could have taken another LumaCube. I just happen to have this little aperture Armatran light, and just using another bounce card and playing with that. You can see the difference immediately between that and that, with that second guy right there. Boom, boom. Played around with this for a while, especially that second one, trying to get the goblin in the back lit up a little bit. Guys, the other guys in the back, 3, 4 back there. 4, you don't really even see him. 3, you can kind of see a little bit of a shadow of him once we're done with fog. So he's just there kind of as a placeholder filler. So I'm at f9. What that's going to give me is a little bit of detail on that second goblin. Third goblin will be recognizable, but it's going to blow out the back a little bit. You know, it's going to, most of the attention will be up to about the back leg of this goblin in the front. I'm at ISO 160, which is about as high as I ever go. Generally, sometimes 200. Try to keep it 200 or below, though. Usually 100. I'm just going to touch that. Yeah, I knew it was going to go off on me. And my shutter speed is 3 seconds. I like when I'm using fog to be somewhere between 2 and 3 seconds. I find that with at least 2 seconds, as the fog swirls around, it dissipates. Because the shutter is open, you're going to get the fog sort of swirling around, and it's just going to create a nice mist look as opposed to like little tendrils of smoke coming up, which is an effect I've used as well. But for this, I really wanted to kind of sit and create kind of a more like mist on the ground and just a general overall mist sort of on the background characters. If I went up to probably like 14 or something like that, you'd start to see the background a little clearer, and you can't get these screen backgrounds too clear because you're going to start to see pixels. Again, if you got a 4K TV, you may not see them as much. The other thing I'm using here on the front here is a polarizing filter. And what that is usually used for is for shooting outdoors to reduce sun glare on whatever, portrait shots, whatever you're shooting outside. So I'll show you how that works. So I'm going to move the filter, I'm going to turn it around the lens, and you'll see that if I turn it to the left, it gets dark. If I turn it to the right, it gets brighter. I'll go full 360, but that's pretty much the parameters of it. So I kept that for this shot pretty much in the middle in a neutral, but there's occasionally while I shoot something and it just looks too bright. For posing, I've got this guy in the front on some tack. This guy in the back, a little wire around his leg. I don't know if you can see it from there. It's kind of creating a third post for him to lean on so that his other leg can be back in a running position like that. Now that's hidden. I try to do as much practical as I can. If you're on the ACBA group on Facebook, you know that's kind of a thing. Just hiding any stands and not necessarily photoshopping out any stands. I'll do that occasionally. I generally won't post stuff on ACBA if I do that, or I'll call it out. The guy in the back, the third guy, also has one on his leg, and he's so far back and the fog is so much back there that you don't even see that. So fog is another thing that I have to play with a lot and a lot of shots. This is why I have to take hundreds of shots of this, because this is going to give me a nice, especially if I blow it around a little bit, it'll give me a nice overall fog effect. Like there's an atmosphere to it, which I like. And then if you just get it really close to the stairs, you can see that it'll, it depends on the air, depends on, the stillness. And eventually I'm going to get a shot where the fog is just nicely dissipated. Could be hundreds of shots, could be a dozen shots. So then I'll take this into Lightroom and Photoshop, and generally in Lightroom I'll just do photo adjustments to get the white balance, play with the contrast, play with the colors, play with the crop a little bit sometimes, and then generally I'll do the rest of it in Photoshop. Almost all my dodging and burning all my color corrections, color grades, things like that, you know, any effects or just paint touch-ups and stuff like that. So that's it. That is the anatomy of this shot. Hopefully you learned something from this that'll help you in your own toy photography. Don't forget to hit subscribe, hit that bell so you'll know when I have another video up, and I'll see you next time. Take care.